My name is Ellen Lapointe, and I'm the CEO at Fenway Health, and I cannot believe I have to talk right now. I'm extremely moved by that film, and I know that many of you, all of you probably are feeling a lot of what I am right now, which is so sad and so much loss and sorrow and memories of all of that time, and so much pride and just gratitude for the opportunity to kind of remember and see and be present to what happened, what we did to stand with and for all of the people that we loved who were experiencing this tragedy, this fear, this horror, and how much came of it and how much we have now because of it, that we can all stand here and watch this film together. I know most of us lived through this. Many of you are living with us now, and I just want to express my gratitude and honor to be here with all of you. And I have the opportunity now to introduce a panel. But first, I just want to say thank you and pause for a moment. What we saw that happened there also happened here. It happened all over the country. It happened all over the world. People rose up and did what it took, and that is an amazing thing. So, and how about those nurses? I was in San Francisco for a lot of that time, maybe afterwards. I know a few of those folks still, but this isn't about me. I want to just, again, say thanks to all of you for coming, first of all, for being here this evening in person to gather together in another time that we are all living through together. So I'm thrilled that you're all here. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I want to thank Janssen Infectious Disease and Vaccine for making this gathering possible tonight. And I'm so delighted that we're going to have a chance now to have this conversation. So let me just introduce some folks, one of whom you just spent some time with. From Ward 5B, we have Allison Moahed. And then we have the president of the, the Boston Association, I'm literally verklempt, Association of Nurses and AIDS Care Chapter President, Justin Alves is here. Welcome, Justin. And then our very own Fenway Health's Director of Community Impact and Engagement, Adriana Boulin, who is something else. Thank you.
Something that has really stuck with me since seeing it at the beginning of the film is something that you said, Allison. There is an enemy, and it's a disease. And I thought about how, in my experience, when public health crises emerge, that conflict also emerges. And sometimes that type of conflict is discrimination. And for example, in my experience, when COVID-19 emerged, I saw that there were some racial and ethnic groups that were ostracized. And we see in the film, and you also experienced and observed, LGBTQ plus people experience a lot of discrimination when HIV emerged. And so I wanted to ask the both of you what you all believe we can do as individuals and a society to keep the focus on the true enemy, which is the disease.
I'm gonna let Allison go first.
Okay.
See how I did that?
Well, and actually, I'm sure this is a question that many of you have thought about, and you could probably be up here on this stage and answering it as well. But society is a big entity, And I find myself thinking constantly why we are reliving some of these same scenarios today. So I would say, first off, vote, vote, vote. Because we saw then and we're seeing now that what our leaders say and do makes a tremendous amount of difference to everyone, to all of us. But it influences how people feel and think, and and it gives them license. It gives them license to go to their dark places, to go to their fears, rather than to challenge those fears. And so along with that, I would say, look at the standards of education in your community, because what is it with us that we don't do critical thinking and that we don't think? So many of us, we are so willing to go along, once again, with our fears, with our deep, dark places, and not with what science tells us, not with what our brains could teach us and our hearts, if we did take the time and had the ability, and I think we all do, to listen to them. And so then also, really, I'm kind of about the individual. That's sort of where I come from. So what about all of us? What are our fears? Because we have them about groups of people who are different than us, and we have them about those elements of ourselves that we find challenging, that we think maybe aren't normal. So so that there's the challenge for all of us, to learn about other people, to learn about ourselves, to develop the compassion and feeling that we have. And maybe I'm preaching to the choir in a sense, because you all are. Look at what you all are doing. You're so outstanding, and I'm so honored to be here among you. But I think it's a challenge for all of us. We all have to look, because we all have those fears. We all have those concerns.
And I mean, I think, even thinking, you're in San Francisco, we're here in Boston. I think it's not us necessarily. It's when we look at the bigger picture, right? The American Southeast, Florida, laws that are being passed, right? The Don't Say Gay bill just passed, right? Thinking about the bigger advocacy issues. One of the ones that we think about all the time at ANAC is something called HIV criminalization. And so the fact that somebody could go to jail, literally, for failure to disclose an HIV status in many states still exists. And so it's something that is a policy and advocacy issue, that we have the science. We know what's true, what's not true. We know that HIV criminalization worsens outcomes. It worsens people getting tested. It's not helpful for anyone. And yet in 26 states, this is still the law of the land, right? Yeah. And so really understanding that there are actionable things we could all do to sort of take this head on and think about not just disparities that might exist, but that still do exist today.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that. And so thanks so much for mentioning ANAC, the Association of Nurses in AIDS Care. I hope you all are, those of you who are nurses, are all members. But look at your professional associations. Be a voice there. That's a great way to advocate. That's a great way to make policy change. Become active in them. Thanks, thank
yeah,
you so much.
And I think these are issues that we both feel very passionately about, and I think they're really actionable. And you can Google these things, right? This is not a big lift to find some of these things, yeah. And it's like you could write a letter.
Yeah, this is stuff you can do.
Thank you both for your responses. Everything that you said in the film moved me, so I just want to say that. And the second question I have for you both, you said, Allison, where death was so present, why not bring life, laughter, and joy? And watching the film, one of the things that I saw was that patients, providers, staff shared those energies of life, laughter, and joy. And I was really excited to see that even members of the community who are non-clinical also brought life, laughter, and joy into this space, particularly Rita Rocket. And also, when I think about Rita Rocket, I'm like, I would so do that. So loved Rita's energy and wanted to know from you, Allison, and also just to get your perspective as well, what do you think Rita's energy helped facilitate for patients, providers, and staff?
Well, love, laughter, and joy. I think, and Rita was, let me say also that Rita was one and an outstanding example, but she was an example of a community that wanted to help, and of a community that came together, especially the gay community. There were, and Rita was a part of the gay community, but she wasn't gay. But what I'm saying is, I'm saying she was, and it was. This film showed the members of this community. You saw Richard Locke, who was a well-known porn star, come up on the unit and do massage. He was rubbing someone's feet. How did that make people feel when here they were feeling disfigured, being sometimes demented, being fragments of the young, strong, vibrant person that they had known themselves to be? And here's this icon of the community, come in to rub their feet. We had the Godfather Fund. We did not get extra money, by the way. We did not get extra funds. We had people come, we had the Godfather Fund who raised money in the community so that they could bring robes and slippers. San Francisco General didn't necessarily have those things. It's a public hospital. We brought food, candy, candy makers, flowers. The ward was so well decorated. So all this created an atmosphere of acceptance, of healing, of normalcy, in a sense. It built on this culture, this gay culture, because initially our patients were predominantly gay men. It built on that culture, so it was fun. There was laughter, there were theatrics, there was play acting, there was fantasy, there was imagination, there was artistry. And just because someone's dying doesn't mean that they're not still alive, that there aren't those elements inside them that will remain inside them until they shut their eyes, and arguably after, some would say. So Rita's presence reminded everyone. I remember when she came into my office and said, "I'm from the community. I see many of my friends here, and I want to help." So people were reminded with her presence and with the presence of others that there are people out there who wanted to help, who wanted to, that they were not alone, as they had been alone in their apartments, perhaps outcast from the jobs by which they knew themselves, that they were still loved, they were still seen, they were still acknowledged, and that the elements of them that were alive in them could still sing and come out. And then, as you saw, and as Rita said, families could get drawn in. Relating on the basis of food is something that everyone can do, and so it was a great joiner.
And I really think of the love, laughter, and joy. That is, like, to me, the perfect equation to address loneliness as a public health issue. And I think that's one of the things that in the unit comes across, is that people, and we still see this today, particularly with people who use substances, particularly with people who are living with HIV who survived the death of many of their friends, this loneliness is pervasive and insidious and kills people. And I think thinking about how can we just do things just to do them, right? There doesn't always need to be a resume builder or an objective or what is the next step. Maybe we wait for a moment and enjoy the presence and the love and laughter of the people we're with. And maybe that looks like brunch on a Sunday morning with a lady in a weird skirt, or maybe it looks like just bringing donuts to a place where you know there's a lot of lonely people and seeing who shows up. But I think that love, laughter, and joy, that really to me is like getting at the heart of like the hospital is one of the loneliest places you can go. Especially, I think in COVID, we have all seen this, right? From our Zoom boxes, trying to make sense of the world we're in today. And I think anything we can do being here today with all these folks, I think really trying to drive at the heart of what is loneliness, how do we address it, and what is something you can do and feel good about doing that doesn't necessarily need to lead to something else. It can just be something of itself.
It's an expression of your own joy and care, and you're caring. Everyone here is caring, or you wouldn't be here right now. But caring isn't only giving a medication or treatment. Caring comes from the heart, and we do all know how to do that.
Thank you. I love that. We do. There's one more question I have before taking one or two questions from the audience. And in describing the individualized holistic care that you all provided patients, Guy Vandenberg says, what seemed obvious was revolutionary. And I wanted to ask you both, do you see more space for growth and evolution in the care delivery for people living with HIV and other diseases? And if so, what does that look like? Or what would you like to see more of that might happen?
So I get the future question.
Yeah.
So no, I think one of the things that I struggle with, and I teach nursing and I work with nurses all the time, and we have a workforce issue. We have a workforce issue because we don't understand that people who choose to go into nursing are choosing to care for people. I think Cliff's point of like, you could leave, right, is so powerful because that is how I feel all of the time. And I want nurses who want to take care of people. And I think trying to build a workforce that is creative and are critical thinkers and are not just coming and passing an exam and like learning how to do the meds. It's like, how do you sit with someone, hold their hand, and understand death is imminent, or understand that your life has just changed forever, and how can I be present with you? And I think that the look to the future is trying to find nurses and trying to find workforce, not just nurses, but other folks as well, who understand that everything can't be so rote. There's not always a right answer. And sometimes sitting with no answer and trying to be creative about what the solution might look like is where we need to go.
I think that the challenge there is to recognize compassion as something to aspire to. I mean, we have it, but the growth and the development of the compassion and the ability to truly care in oneself should be a value that's valued, not just whether you got, all your work done, your meds given, and whether you finished all your documentation. So then how does management and leadership advocate for that and stand up for those staff members who display those qualities? That's a challenge for us because it's not always easy. It's not built in, unfortunately.
Right,
to a
creating
care setting, caring is not necessarily built in.
Well, in creating a billing structure, right now, I don't know if all of you know this, but if you go to the hospital, the nurses, like what the cost of the nurses is built into your room fee. That's still the way it works, right? Like you don't pay, your insurance isn't paying for the nurse, they're paying for the room. The nurse comes with the room, right? And so understanding that that's our current billing structure, that's an issue, right? That is a problem. And you don't promote good quality care. You don't. How many of you have ever seen somebody get rushed out of the hospital too quickly? Raise your hand. I mean, like, that is an issue, right? Understanding that people need more than just checking the boxes, right?
It has to be made explicit. It really does. And I think and there has to be a lot of role modeling, because nurses don't take care of themselves, and then they don't necessarily take care of one another. And that's actually part of our code of ethics, that we need to care for ourselves as we care for others. And once again, I think it has a lot to do with management and leadership too. It's part of our role to ensure or to start creating the structures where that can unfold, that kind of caring can unfold and be valued.
Thank you both.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
I just want to really thank Johnson & Johnson for making this film. I really want to make that explicit, because to me, this film has been a tremendous gift. We didn't know, those of us who participated, we had no idea how this was going to turn out. We were really afraid, I'll tell you the truth. The first time we saw it, there was just a little group of us. We were in a tiny theater, and we were sort of like, okay, what's going to happen now? And then it happened, and it was a wonderful thing. And I think it's an important gift to people, to your generation and to generations that follow, that this time be remembered, that this time be learned from, perhaps provide an inspiration for people and generations to follow, because we need to learn, we need to not keep repeating the same things. And am I talking too much?
No, you're not. Do you see me looking at you like hooked?
I will just
Keep
sit here and
going.
listen all night.
These guys, these people who gave their lives, you see them there. And I remember so many of them. I feel them at my back sometimes. And I just feel them. And it's so important that their memories be honored, that the time they lived through, and Hank expressed it so beautifully, but how they gave of themselves so that others could learn, could go forward. This film commemorates them all, as well as the care providers, and I do. I thank J&J for that, as well as the wonderful filmmakers. I don't mean to deny them, but it wouldn't have happened without J&J, and I really appreciate it, and how they've used the film to foster nursing education and care provider knowledge.
For someone who hasn't seen the film and has ever had that desire of wanting to feel connected to someone or heal to someone, I encourage that you watch this film. This film describes how you can take an idea after seeing something that's not working out in anything. Here in this film, it was not working out on a ward, but it could be anything not working out. It's having the idea of not working it out, seeing that it can be done differently, and doing that. And I think the more that we do that, and if you want to see how that's done, watch this film.
I always feel very sad, but I always feel joy as well. Joy to see these faces, to see the love, to honor the good work that was done and the lives that were lived on that unit, because they were lived on that unit as well as died on that unit. And I must say that I'm so honored to be with you all from Fenway. I think your organization is just, it's mind-blowing. It's what a healthcare organization should be. It really is. I'm so impressed. Keep up your wonderful, wonderful work. And if I were like, I don't know, probably about 50 years younger, maybe I'd move out here to Boston and join you.
Oh, I was so sad and so angry at times, and then other times so uplifted by the nurses and the doctors and what they really did for those patients. I have an interesting connection to that time frame. My dad was gay and passed away during the AIDS crisis, 1987. And so every time I see stories or somebody mentions that time frame, the peak of the epidemic, I am right back, and I am 16 years old and watching all of that stuff happen. So I felt like the people next to me are like, why is this girl crying so much?
I'm speaking from being a long-term survivor and being in Boston and going to Northeastern University and being on the co-op program and working in San Francisco for 1980 and 3/4 of the year of 1981. And watching this film brings so much emotion and being very difficult to watch, but it's like what you get out of it afterwards. It's like having a good cry, or it's like having a fight with somebody and the feeling after you've made up. And watching the film just gives me so much gratitude towards nursing people, because they're just kind, giving people, and what they did was worldwide phenomenon. Thank you.
It made me feel grateful that you're still talking about this, because I lost my son in 1985, and it was so long ago, but we keep his memory alive every day of my life. I started a mother's support group for other mothers because no one was able to give us any information. Everything was just, I can't even think of the words. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It was a great reminder of what it was like back then. I lived a pretty isolated life, even though I was in Boston. I had friends sort of on the periphery of my life who were dying of AIDS, but I didn't really until 1995 experience firsthand when my best friend died of AIDS, and also my twin brother's boyfriend died of AIDS the same year. Incredible reminder, and so important that it was saved in this film. I couldn't help but think about how the care that was given to these people in 5B, that kind of care might be carried over to hospice care today, where people are going to die. There's no doubt of that, but they should be loved. And I think that's beautiful. So thank you.
Well put.
It sort of resonated personally for me as well. It's sort of tragic, but my dad passed away from COVID and like a year and a half ago, and a big regret that we all in the family have is that no one could be with him in his last moments. So to see people who care above and beyond sort of what's medically required and essential in today's world was extremely moving, and I'm so happy that is a sentiment shared by so many. And again, it's I think you feel so many emotions during these past few years, but you never get that shared, embodied sense of that other people also feel that with you. And so there was a lot of love in the room, and it was wonderful to feel that.
The message to me of this film is really human kindness and community. I grew up in community, and that was a source of support, of love, of belonging, of connection. And this film to me showed me what people can come together when they come and create. Allison said in the film that we were coming together and we were creating. And I think we as people can come together in our differences with our passions and our interests and create and overcome what is ailing any of us. And this was a perfect representation of that, and I loved it. It inspired me, it energized me, and I want to move forward in this work together with other people.
So it's not my first time seeing the film. It's actually probably the third or fourth time seeing the film. And every time I see it, it's actually a new call to action for me to change the way practice is currently and to really improve things for the patients that I serve. I think one of the most amazing things that I always remember about the film is that if you just let nurses be nurses, then good things happen.
So this is the 5th time I've actually seen 5B. I work for J&J, and I'm super proud of my company for commissioning this particular documentary. I lived personally through this crisis, lost friends, partner. I'm here tonight with my husband of 34 years. It gets harder and harder every time I see this. I remember. I love the folks that we lost, and I'm so glad that we're able to be here in remembrance of those folks and to welcome folks like Allison this evening. The last thing I'll have to say is this movie teaches me about compassion, true love. It also teaches me to be a stronger person and to advocate for those people living with HIV. Because honestly, hashtag make HIV history.
At Janssen, we really appreciate the opportunity to work with Fenway Health and really convey what is really important to us as well as Fenway, that mutual benefit of the patient and the caregiver. And really take an opportunity to have events like this where we can really put out to the community and support the community in a way that's meaningful and powerful so that we can really move forward to end HIV.
We are so glad that Janssen was able to help us with this and sponsor the event. We wouldn't be able to do it without their help, and clearly Johnson & Johnson, their parent company, really sponsoring the overall production of the movie really gets this word out about what the AIDS epidemic was like, the heroes during that time frame, and that there's still a lot of work to be done.
That was such a moving film. I mean, really, it was incredible to really witness in such a profound way, the way the film was put together, how these nurses came together with that kind of grace and the compassion, and also their determination and their sort of fierceness that they needed at the time to make it happen. It was just totally inspiring. And I think, you know, it holds up, right? It's been over 40 years since that all happened, since it all began. And it was really, it felt fresh again to watch a movie that really brought us back to those times. It also was just wonderful to see kind of how much of what was created back then has stayed with us. I mean, they really created a model that has spread far beyond the care of people with HIV. It's a huge legacy, I think, that they and others like them around the country and even around the world really pioneered. And we've come so far, of course. There's just been so many things that have gotten better since then. And of course, we still have a really long way to go.